And this is definitely a huge moment for you, going for 4 in a row. Tell us how you're feeling heading into Sunday's race.
I feel good. You know, I think as you look at the schedule for us, I think this is one that we've all had circled. It's really since I've been at SHR, you know, as a track that we hadn't won at, that we felt like we've run well enough to run at. And for me personally, it's obviously close to home, and I crashed coming to the green flag last year, so there's got to be a little redemption somewhere along the line to pick yourself back up and recover from that. So looking forward to the weekend, and hopefully we can keep doing what we've been doing.
All right, we're going to open it up for questions. Let's go first to Lee Spencer.
Was wondering, do you have any plans after you get out of racing full-time, perhaps going back into ownership, maybe if that's something that Keelan would want to pursue?
That's a good question. I don't really, you know, have plans that are set in stone. I've learned a long time ago to not say what you think you're going to do that far in advance. You know, for me, it would be, I enjoy being a part of the team and situation that I'm currently in because they let you be a part of the conversation. It would be fun to be more of a part of that conversation as you go forward when you're not in the car. You know, as far as owning something and doing it on our own again, I can tell you that won't happen, just because the financial commitment is just so big, and you know, I think as you look at the time commitment and things that go with it are large. But you know, being a part of you know, helping run the team would be something that would be interesting. You know, if you could do some sort of consulting. And as far as Keelan goes, I mean, he hasn't really asked to race, and I'm not going to ask him, just because you know he's exploring a lot of things right now with different sports and starting school, and I want him to be a kid. I want him to be able to. I don't want to have to pull him out of school all the time to go race and do all those things that it takes to do it right. It's just it's a big commitment. So you know, when you make those types of commitments, that everybody's going to have to buy in. So we'd have to drag Mom into that conversation to see how that went.
Let's go up front to Claire.
Claire Beeline, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Will it be easier for you to get poles now that it's Busch-sponsored pole awards, and is that a big deal for you?
Well, I don't know that it'll make it any easier, but you know, I think as you look at the commitment, and I think everybody internally would tell you, you know, when it went from Budweiser to the conversation about Budweiser, you know, wanting to change directions. You know, there was a time in that conversation where everybody didn't really know where the program was going to go, and Busch was brought up in the conversation just because of their ties and their roots in the sport. And they came on board, and everybody didn't really know how that was going to be received with the sport and the fans and the brand. And you know, when you see the increase in sales and you see the activation and you see everything that's happened, it was a really, really good move from not only where I sit, but from the brand standpoint. And so when you see Busch taking another step, you know, to come back with the pole award, and really that's going to enhance our program with the activation and the things that they're adding to what we already do. You know, the commitment that they've made and the activation that they've done that is working for everybody is, you know, really fun to be a part of. And we're really fortunate to be a part of it just because of the fact that you have a sponsor that is so committed to the sport.
I guess I didn't really mean it would be easier for you to get the pole, but to celebrate the pole. There used to be the beer wars, right? And when you're celebrating the pole and you're representing, you know, Busch beer, if that was,
that'll be a lot easier.
Now.
That'll be a lot easier. Yeah, it was obviously very controversial as far as when you win the pole before and it was with the wrong brand. So we wouldn't go to the celebration. We would just celebrate on our own. So yeah, it'll definitely be better to be a part of the celebration now for sure.
Let's go next to Wolfgang.
Kevin, 2 questions for you concerning yesterday's race, the K&N race in Bakersfield you were racing. Number 1, how was it going? And number 2, did you spot yourself any new talent in this race? You will see, well, there's a guy who can make maybe ups the way to Cup. in the future?
I think I always get nervous when we do stuff like that because you always, you feel like everybody's kind of stepped out of the box to do something different. Thursday night's a big commitment for the teams with so many volunteers and the fans to come out on Thursday night with their kids and families, and so you always are nervous about whether it'll work or not. But there was 5,000 or 6,000 people that showed up to the race last night, and the event went great. It's a great facility and great exposure for the K&N series and the track, and to be able to do that in my hometown was pretty neat to not only go there but just see all the support, and see a lot of people who hadn't been to a race since since Mesa Marin closed in 2005. So I think as you see the week and you see the conversations that have been started about grassroots racing, and you see the support, to go along with everything that was talked about and said last weekend is very eye-opening, just for the fact that there's a lot of people that love to race. They just need a little more here and there as far as support goes. So to be able to put those kids, most of them are kids, 15, 16 years old. I'm old enough to be their dad. Is pretty fun for me. To see and watch. Honestly, as I look back on the event and take away, if I had to pick one person to say, all right, that's the person that KHI would want to represent and think has the most potential, it would probably be Haley Deegan. She did really, really well. Obviously, they have, I would call it a unique racing heritage within their family with Brian. And, I got to race with her for a little bit there at the end of the race, and she did a great job in the car. So, I think as far as potential and reach and just racing knowledge and getting in the car as young as she is, that would be the one that I would pluck out of the series and say, that's the one we want to be a part of, because she has a lot of potential and already has, some racing experience in multiple vehicles. So that was fun to see.
Let's go next to Pat.
Pat Nicole, NASCAR.com. I assume you can't win 3 races in a row without having significant physical driver talent. But how has the mental aspect played into your success here?
I think everybody's extremely confident. I think that confidence just builds. In every moment you just become more and more confident in the things that you can and can't do. And I think as you look at our team in general, it's a unique situation, and you guys have heard me talk about this a lot, just because of the fact that we all have so much confidence in each other, and then you add everything that happened with the penalty in the middle of all that, and it just really added fuel to the fire. So I think everybody is, we've talked about this in the past, is how do you race every week like you do in playoff mentality? And that's really what it's felt like, the first 4 weeks that we've been on the racetrack. So it's that part to me is fun, because I feel like that's really what Jimmy and Chad did for so many years. Was they raced with the playoff mentality every week, and were able to accomplish that in the shop. And if you can accomplish that in the shop, that's unique, just because it's so mentally draining and takes so much work to keep up with everything. As you look at all the details and things that come with that, it can be mentally draining. So if you can get your team to that point of being able to playoff race in that playoff race mindset every week, that's something that most teams can't do.
What steps do you take to get into that mode from day one?
Well, I think when you see, everything that we did last year, switching to Ford and all the work that went into it, it took a lot of effort to get the cars back to be competitive to the point where we wanted to be of winning races and racing, leading laps and racing for the lead and doing all those things to win races. And everybody carried that same workload over, but all the work that it took to switch manufacturers was already done. So it's like you'd already put everything in position, and I think, going to Ford allowed us to add a lot of positions and a lot of people to raise the bar of the expectations of what the mindset should be in the shop as far as how you approach things and how many details can you cover in the amount of time that you need to prepare the car. And that amount of time is more because of the fact that you have more people, so you can cover more details. And I think bringing all that stuff in-house for us and having the extra support from Ford is one reason that level of detail has been able to be raised.
Let's go next to Bob.
Bob Hockersey, ESPN. There have been 8 drivers in the modern era who've won 4 in a row. Would winning 4 in a row mean anything? And joining the likes of Gordon, Johnson.
Heck, I'm just happy to win 1, let alone 2 in a row, 3 in a row. And this most likely probably be the only opportunity that you ever have to do it, because it's hard to string together just putting a whole day together, and the odds of putting 3 weeks together. But anytime you can put your name next to a group of guys on a list that you just mentioned is something that's pretty special, and just shows the magnitude of where our race team is at right now and how good it's actually functioning.
Let's go up front to
Thanks
Mike.
for coming last night too, Bob. Lee, Reed, thank you.
Me?
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike
There was enough of you there that I can't remember all of it.
Mike Embry, USA Today. I want to ask you about last night. Were you aware going in that it was a one set of tire deal, and how did you work that, knowing you had to have tires left near the end?
Well, the K&N series switched to radial tires, which is a great move, because one thing that the owners are trying to wrap their arms around is, how do I sell the kids' dads and newcomers on this is the place to be, and it's going to help you, advance to the Truck Series or advance to the Xfinity Series or gain experience for the Xfinity Series. And switching to that radial tire, which is the tire that we ran at Martinsville, is a great move, because the bias ply tires had actually crept up in price, getting closer to a radial tire. But I did know that it was one set of tires. It was that way at Sonoma, and really a lot of the tire savings strategies and techniques that they had in the past weren't really necessary with the radial, because it runs fast so much longer. So. Yeah, that's not really any issue. I mean, we ran 100 laps on the ones in practice, and they look fine. So really, the brake heat was the biggest issue that we had. Just building air in the tires. But I think NASCAR and Goodyear have done a pretty good job of getting that situated so that you have something that is legitimately on the Cup cars, trucks, and Xfinity cars that you can't get in ARCA and you can't get in late models. I mean, that's the only place that you can get that experience that they can now get on the East and West Series.
Let's go next to Chris Knight.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Kevin, your opinion on grassroots racing, particularly short track racing in general, sparked a lot of interest, a lot of not controversy, but a lot of discussion amongst stories and Sirius XM. Was that what you were looking for out of last week when you did that?
I always feel like that's one thing I've been pretty good at, is just starting a conversation. I normally don't have the right ideas, but I can at least lead the conversation to get started, and then you let it evolve from there. I didn't really expect the whole grassroots conversation to spin out of control like it did this week. But I think when, I spent a lot of time just walking from, different teams in the garage this past weekend, and I got to see P.J. Jones. His son was racing late models there, and just hearing his opinion on whether he should take his son and put him in the K&N West Series, or leave him in the late model series, or pick his family up and move to the East Coast, was very interesting to me, because I just don't know where we all went wrong to have the East and West Series not be the place to naturally go from late models. And I don't know where that changed, but it has changed. Everybody wants to go run ARCA, and ARCA runs on more ISC racetracks than the K&N East or West does. And so the kids that are coming up through the series want to be on those racetracks. And I think as you look at what we're doing, that conversation shouldn't ever be had. It should never be a thought. It should be, okay, when my kid gets done with late models, we're going to go run the East or the West Series. where you live in the country because it's on radial tires. You can go to some of the bigger racetracks. And now that they have the bigger cars and they have the composite bodies, you know, we should be able to get these cars back on, you know, some of these type of racetracks at California Speedway or Vegas or some of these bigger racetracks, because the cars and the tires and the things that are there should be able to be safe on the bigger racetracks. So it's an interesting dynamic right now. There's definitely, you know, everybody feels like they need help and don't have a lot of direction. But you guys have been a big part of helping keep that conversation going. And, you know, I saw South Boston had a very unique ticket package. So if you had a Martinsville Speedway ticket, you got into the race for free this weekend. So, you know, Stafford Speedway was messing around, tweeting with me, and Ryan Priest was one guy that reached out and you know, said, hey, man, we really appreciate you starting a conversation. He's in there digging every week in the modified stuff, trying to make a name for himself here. And Stafford was like, wait, why don't you be a part of our contingency program? I'm like, well, you asked, so okay, we will. So just little things here and there just it's just going to be a little bit of a sacrifice from everybody to help build it back into what it needs to be. It's not going to happen overnight. I had a great conversation with Mike Helton, he's got his NASCAR home tracks jacket on this morning, by the way. I don't know what that message is, but it's fun because Mike and there's a lot of people at NASCAR who really have been putting a lot of time and effort in, and I think you see you know, the amount of work that's gone in with the schedules and changing of the radial tires and talking to the car owners. It sounds like the dirt race at Las Vegas is probably going to be the biggest car count that they've had in a long time, because the owners and NASCAR worked out you can run the old steel-bodied cars, so you can come over there and knock those old bodies off and run on the dirt. So, you know, they're expecting somewhere around 50 cars, they think, to show up to that race, which is a really big deal. So hopefully that event goes over well, and that's what they need. They need an event like last night. They need an event like the dirt race. You know, they need to be back at Phoenix and racing where all the guys on the West Coast want to race, because that is their Daytona. So it's interesting to see the amount of momentum and things that have been stirred up this week in a good way.
All right, that's going to conclude for us, guys. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.